I'm Steve Palazzolo, this is Sam Monson, we are PFF, and this is Well Actually. Sam, Philadelphia Eagles defensive end Brandon Graham had a great game this past weekend. 2 sacks, 4 quarterback hurries, 4 total defensive stops. What many might call a breakout game for Brandon Graham. Well, actually, we're here to tell you that Brandon Graham has always been one of the better edge defenders in the entire league. Last year, number 2 overall, 93.9 grade as part of PFF Edge. You can find that he was number 2 right behind Khalil Mack of the Oakland Raiders. But Graham has never had more than 7 sacks in a season. How can a guy that doesn't get to the quarterback as often as these other 10 and 15 sack guys, how can he grade so high?
Yeah, and it's because there's more to life than sacks. Pressuring the quarterback is an art, and it's pressuring the quarterback, hurrying him, hitting him in the pocket. All these things are important, and sacks is just a small part of the puzzle. If you look beyond that, if you look at the pressure numbers, Brandon Graham pressures the quarterback as much as anybody. Last season, he had 83 total pressures, which was 3rd in the league, behind Khalil Mack again and behind Olivier Vernon. And why does that matter? It's because if you can just hurry the quarterback in the pocket, it makes a demonstrable difference on his passing ability. On average last year, it took his passer rating down from the mid-90s into the mid-60s. It was a 34-point drop, which is the equivalent of turning Tom Brady into Blake Bortles just by rushing him in the pocket.
Okay, that feels pretty significant, but at some point, the sack does matter. Now, Graham's only converted 7.2% of his pressures into sacks over the years. 15% is the average for most defensive ends. And we know what a sack is. A sack ends the drive. It ends the play. How can you possibly say, hey, the pressure is more important when you have a guy like Vic Beasley only had a 74.4 PFF grade? This is the argument we always get. Vic Beasley had 16 sacks, Graham had 6. Surely the sack must be more valuable.
Yeah, and it is. And most of the time, the sack is more important than the pressure. Sometimes the pressure is more important. It can result in an interception. You know, a guy gets hurried, he runs out of the pocket, he throws an ill-advised pass. It's a turnover for the defense. It's better than most sacks. But most of the time, the sack is more important. But the big question was how much more valuable? That was what we always tried to figure out. And we had the analytics guys at PFF run those numbers and come up with an EPA, an expected points added for these plays to work out exactly how much is the value. And they discovered that an average sack is worth 2.1 extra pressures, additional types of pressure. So for a guy like Vic Beasley, he's got 10 extra sacks on top of Brandon Graham. For Graham to match that, he would need 21 additional pressures of some kind. But he didn't get 21 more hurries than Vic Beasley last year. He had 38 extra pressures than Vic Beasley. So he was dramatically more valuable, even if you factor in the fact that the sacks are the more valuable play.
And when we're looking at sacks, we have to understand that not all sacks are created equal. And when you're truly evaluating a player and how well he's playing on a play, sometimes the sack is easier than the pressure. A lot of times we see a guy, create pressure that leads to a sack from his teammate. Vic Beasley, I think, was the beneficiary of a lot of that help last year. Brandon Graham, a guy that we've been talking about since he came into the NFL in 2010, was a part-time player until 2015, and I think last year, a career year for him in his first year as a starter, and off to a great start here in 2017.